Bienvenidos a todos. Hello, everybody. This is Abelardo de la Peña Jr., Director of Marketing and Communications with La Plaza de Cultura y Artes, welcoming you to tonight's En Casa con La Plaza. La Plaza de Cultura y Artes brings you these conversations, presentations, demonstrations, performances, and more from our home to yours, 3, sometimes more times per week.
Hello, everybody. This is Abelardo de la Peña Jr.
Ah, see, you even hear me. There you go. It's our way of fulfilling our mission of telling you, our viewers, the little known stories of Mexican Americans, and all Latinos in the founding, growth, and evolution of the greater Los Angeles area. If you're on Zoom, please, you know how to use the chat. Just let us know where you're viewing from. Q&A. We'll be saving the questions for later, but you use our Q&A function on Zoom. If you're on Facebook, please, the comment section is there for you to send us your comments, your questions. Let us know where you're coming from. We'd like to hear from you, but we'll be answering you at the end of the session, or towards the end of the session. We already see Adrian Sanchez from Austin, Texas. So yeah, you're coming in from all over. Well, today we have a very special program. As you know, La Plaza de Cultura y Artes closed our museum on March 14th due to the pandemic. Right before that week, in fact, we were set to open an exhibition called Carlos Almaraz, Evolution of Form. The night of the reception, we pivoted because of what was going on. We pivoted and we did a walkthrough with Susana Batista, the curator, Susana Batista Smith, and our guest for tonight. We live streamed it over Facebook. We did it in 2 parts because we also recorded it so that we could edit, color correct, fix the audio and the titles. There's a version of the complete walkthrough with commentary by the curator, Susana Batista, Smith Batista, on our website, Facebook, and YouTube page. But tonight, we are presenting for the first time a more intimate walkthrough where Elsa Flores Almaraz reveals surprising and personal anecdotes about some of the artwork and her photos, which are also part of the exhibition. But before we screen the recorded walkthrough, I'm going to introduce to you Elsa Flores Almaraz. She's an LA-based multimedia fine artist, studying at Art Center College of Design, a painter, a fine art photographer, a public artist, musician, and filmmaker. She's exhibited her works internationally and most recently has been committed to producing and co-directing a documentary film of her late husband, Carlos Almaraz, which we will show a trailer after the walkthrough. The two met as activists and cultural workers in the 70s during the cultural renaissance of the Chicano art movement. They both evolved into mainstream gallery artists and shared a studio in downtown LA. After a 7-year friendship, they married, had a daughter, Maya. Unfortunately, Carlos died of AIDS in 1989, but Elsa has continued her commitment to his legacy by managing his estate and promoting and nurturing his continued career while creating her own art daily. Elsa lives part-time on the island of Kauai, where she is zooming from, and keeps a studio in LA. So please zoom in, Elsa. And there you are.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Abelardo. It's an honor to be here with you all.
Well, thank you so much for zooming in all the way from Kauai to share with us this intimate walkthrough. But before we start, and again, this is a recorded walkthrough, so we'll be screening it. It's about 20 minutes worth, but you'll find it very fascinating. But if you could tell us, how did this exhibition come about?
Well, it came about because Juan and Susana and a few of the other curators from La Plaza contacted me and said, hey, we have a spot in March, and that was only a few months prior. Can we put an Almaraz show together? And I was like thrilled, of course. I always love sharing his art, and said yes. And we just like jammed on it, got it up on the walls. And as you just informed the audience, we were shut down that night. But so it's been on the walls since March. Very few people have seen it, but we're hoping, we've extended it for a year. We're hoping that people will have a chance to come to the museum and see it. And I don't know, but Abelardo, are people still able to go by appointment?
Unfortunately, at this time, no, they're not. It's very, as we know, we're trying to meet, or are meeting, the safety and health guidelines imposed by the city of LA, by the county of LA, by the state government. And so we are abiding by those. So we're keeping access to the museum to just every now and then staff members are able to come in. But it is still up on our walls. And in fact, you could view, the viewers out there, if you go to our website at lapca.org or to our YouTube page at La Plaza LA, you could see the entire walkthrough that includes Susana. But tonight, well, first of all, let me ask you, what's your reaction to the pivot that we had to do? That evening, we in fact brought in Javier Guillen, one of our great contractors that we work with, to do a live stream of the walkthrough. So what was your reaction to that?
I thought the walkthrough was really wonderful. It was so intimate because where I was able, and Susana was able to share little tidbits. Like I in particular had the more intimate tidbits connected to each of the art pieces, and Susana put it together in a art historical fashion, which really helped bring it together. And what was so wonderful about this exhibit was it was an exhibit that hadn't been done before. It really was addressing the connection between his early abstract works, his grid works that he had started developing in New York when he was a young artist in New York City, and how it carried over to what we know of his work today. So it was quite seminal in the way that curated.
Oh, fantastic. All right. Well, and as far as the reaction that we've gotten, the walkthrough got over 5,000 views with via Facebook and our YouTube channel and our website. But as Elsa described, tonight is going to be a little bit of a more intimate view where we will introduce, of course, Susana Smith Bautista will introduce the show, but then it'll delve a little bit more deeply on the memories that it invokes in you, some of the techniques, of course, but also your photography that is part of the exhibition. And could you tell us a little bit about your background as a fine artist?
Yes, Carlos and I met in the early 70s doing grassroots work in the Chicano community during our Chicano Renaissance. We were both activists and artists in the community. We both worked at Plaza de la Raza, teaching children about art and music, along with David Hidalgo and Luis Perez, who I continue to collaborate with today. And we were all these, poor artists, teachers, and we created this really beautiful community. So that's how he and I became friends. We were friends for 7 years before we started dating. I had rented a studio next to his in downtown LA on 8th and Spring, and that's where it all just took off. So yeah, those connections. At the time when Carlos met me, I was mostly doing photography. Painting had always been my first love, but I really got into following the movement, the Chicanos, the art culture, my family and friends, and depicting that in very intimate ways. That's why the photographs are really small, because I love for you to go in and feel that intimacy. Later, I returned to my painting, and there's a couple of my paintings in the show as well.
I was on mute there. Well, thank you so much. And with that, we're going to go ahead and showcase this video. Like I said, it's a little bit of more of an intimate view, very lovingly edited by Javier Guillen with an assistance by Elsa, who really led we included titles and really try to showcase the art in a more, what can I say, more professional way versus the first live stream that we did. Color corrected it, fixed up the audio. See for yourselves, and I hope you're able to really get a sense of the beautiful work that is involved with this exhibition. And if you're on Facebook, please share it with friends, start a watch party. Like I said, we will take the questions and comments afterwards, but here we go. Thank you so much. Here goes.
Before I start talking about the exhibition, again, give a big, big thank you to Elsa Flores Almaraz, who is an incredible artist and was also the wife of Carlos Almaraz. I want to thank her for making this work available to us. Thank her for making the documentary available to us that you will see later on, for her curatorial insight and expertise, and for keeping the memory and the artistic legacy of Carlos Almaraz alive.
Thank you, Susana and John and everyone here at Plaza. We're going to run through the exhibit. Susana's going to lead. And we're going to talk very much about the history and the evolution of mostly Carlos's early work, which people are not familiar with. And it's going to be a great insight as to how he evolved his imagery into what we knew of the last 10 years of his life. For those of you who don't know Carlos Almaraz, he was an amazing imagist, artist, well loved in Los Angeles and the Southwest, just about to break through internationally when he was stricken down by AIDS in 1989. So it's been 30 years since he's been gone, and we're just excited that his legacy continues. Carlos was very interested in the universal language, and he wanted to crack that code. He knew that the arts were important in communicating beyond language. And when he had a near-death experience, he was actually taken on this journey with these aliens, an alien ship, and they discussed the universal language. And in that discussion, they said it was made up of 6 symbols. And you'll see those symbols in many of these pieces. So this particular piece was based on a Dada exercise called the Exquisite Corpse. And Carlos and Los Four at the time, Carlos introduced this exercise because he was just, so worldly. He had been in New York and he had studied art history and he studied all the museums around the world. And the Dadaists were doing this exercise where you would take one piece of art and several artists would take it and make it theirs and change it and paint over or draw over each other's pieces. And this is one of those pieces because during the time of Los Four, they were exploring the aesthetic of the barrio and making art in the barrio. And one of the more traditional known aesthetics is spray paint and graffiti. And he was in, as well as Judith Hernandez, were in a show at the San Francisco Museum called Graffiti. I believe that's the name of the piece. So this is one of those pieces where they're using spray cans. And this piece was cut out of a stretcher bar, so it may have been much larger. That was also part of the aesthetic back then, or the ideology of making collective work and making work that's not owned by a gallery or a museum. So, everyone got a piece and took it home. So this was but you do see some of Carlos's iconographies here. You see the calavera with the wings, the angel wings. You see this nude woman. And so the imagery that evolved from the abstract grid compositional pieces began to take figurative form, which is what Carlos really was all along. That's why he struggled so much in New York, because deep inside, he was a figurative artist. He was Mexicano and very emotional, very passionate. And when he finally broke loose of the New York construct, he finally got to really express himself in the way that he's meant to do. This piece piece, The Return, is a seminal piece because he had, as Susana had just mentioned, he had spent 41 days in a coma from having he almost drank himself to death, basically. So he had acute pancreatitis. He was given last rites. He was on his way out. He had left his body and hovered over the gurney and was heading towards the white light. That's when he encountered the aliens and had that journey. But when he came back into his body, this is one of the first pieces that he produced. And you can see like all that was like evoked in his hospital visit. Like here he is in this hospital bed and there's all these sexual iconographies, which became part of his visual language. And you know, obviously this is very sort of Los Angeles. It represented his return to Los Angeles. And also the cultural iconography, like the bleeding heart, which is very Mexican. And the hand of God shooting down. And then, you know, and then he's also very funny. So he's got like farts coming out and lots of body parts. Lots of body parts, a lot of sexual language and situations. His cultural iconography began to develop here too, because the pingos, the diablos, were very much part of Latin culture and the church and all that entails. You can also see when he went into sort of a storyteller mode as an artist, the grid served that, because now he also had a fascination with animation. So now it's like a storyboard. It's as he's able to convey lots of different stories, and his mind was filled with them in this form. When they moved to Chicago, his dad really wanted him to integrate into American society, so they changed his name from Carlos to Charles David Almaraz. And then later, during his born-again Chicano period, which is what I call it, he returned to Carlos, his given name. Carlos was not only a prolific artist, like creating thousands of works and never stopping to create. No matter where we traveled, he'd bring his supplies and he'd get out of the car or in the hotel room and he would draw. But during from New York on, he created about 87 journals that we access to use in the film, and also we use in many of his exhibitions, because he was, again, so prolific. And
It's like poetry.
Yeah, it's like
when you read
poetry.
them. It's
And he's a
beautiful.
poet too. There is poetry in many of his journals. This first one is a sketchbook, and there are many of these, of his color studies. I mean, he learned from the masters in New York and around the world, and they're just like color on color, and that's why, you know, he's such a vibrant colorist.
And just to note, this is 1969. So this is the same time as we were looking at those black and white grids that he was exploring color.
And then during his reawakening, his rebirth after having almost lost his life in 1971, he became very political. He joined Cesar Chavez in the Farm Workers Union up in the Central Valley. He went to work with them. He did murals for the conventions and did their magazine, their newspaper, El Malcriado. And during that time, it was very political for many of us, many of the activists of the time, with the Cultural Revolution happening around the world. So he did have the opportunity to go to Cuba and to China as well in a cultural exchange. So he has sketchbooks of his time in China. He really admired Mao because Mao was very much about the arts. And then he went to Cuba as well, where he was sort of talking about Mao, and he almost got kicked out of Cuba for that because he was carrying his little red book around. But yes, he was very much politically active and was a socialist and a Trotskyite and a Maoist, just to explore, because that was his style. He just dove into whatever he was looking for and exploring and studying. Carlos did back in the day when he was, a poor artist, is he worked in house paints and lots of inexpensive art materials. And this piece he had taped up onto the wall. You can still see there's masking tape, which is not archival, that held it down. And so the archivists like cleaned it up and made it acid-free somehow, however they do that, and they put it on this archival rice paper. And it's pinned up right now with these amazing magnets that are holding it in place. It's an acrylic, and it was just so overjoyed to see it up on the wall. Camera with me. I was a fine art photographer and later went back to my first love, which was painting. But during that time, I would follow the movement, all the artists that I worked with, and did also family and friends. So this is my tia Julia, and she was so funny, and I loved Julia so much. So she was a very welcoming model for me. And down below that, Roberto Gil de Montes, we had lots of parties with different artists at his homes. And so that was him in his bathroom. Hope you're watching, Robert. And then Louis Perez and I still have a lifelong collaboration. And Louis is quite the performance artist. And I would follow him and document him, as well as talk to him and create new performance art pieces. This was in my studio window at 8th and Spring Street. And Louis sitting at a window, and there's his reflection and some lipstick on the window. And right next to him, well, below is Renee, which was again, and Victor Durazo here, who is now long departed, a ballet folklorico dancer and dear friend of mine. And again, one of these art parties. They were always costume or theme parties. And right next door, we have Louis Perez, who created this cross and did a performance art piece called Let's Put an End to This Nightmare. And that is that piece there. And he was walking through the 3rd Street Tunnel. Below him is at Murals of Aslan at the Craft and Folk Art Museum in the 80s, early 80s. Carlos and I were just dating. And the mural behind him was by Judith Hernandez. And I captured this piece of Carlos looking at his mural through a reduction glass. And I just thought it was very poignant.
That's a great title, isn't it? Don't look back.
Don't look back. Don't look behind you.
Don't look behind you.
Yes. And then we move over to the piece in the corner, which is Martha, another folklorico dancer. She was at my studio and was modeling for me. And right below, well, we had already been married, and Carlos was at my mom's house for Thanksgiving dinner, and always the joker, just hilarious. He would always break out in song and dance, or put on a costume or make a mask. And in this case, this is called the Muffin Man, because he put some Thanksgiving muffins on these glasses and did a Carlos on us. So. Yeah, I really enjoyed this whole series. I also followed the whole Chicano punk period of the early 80s and documented quite a bit of that. And I liked working in very small, intimate sizes because you can really get in there and be part of what's there. It's very intimate. And I printed these all in my darkroom. The influences, of course, went both ways. And Carlos taught me so much mostly about color and form. This is my piece. Done in the 80s, and this is Carlos's piece, Bunny Boy. And I had returned to my painting again as my first love, but I was still photographing, and Carlos was probably one of the most photographed artists around because I've always had my camera. So we were each other's models so often, both in painting and photography. So I was using a lot of thick paint, and as you can see here, this is encaustic, which is wax and oil paint. And just to really build up the surface. I really love what paint does, and I love building that up. So Carlos, in the past, in the early 70s and early 80s, would be painting very flat with acrylic. And he liked what I was doing, so he would come over and we'd shared the studio at this point. And he would look at my work and he'd go back, and then he'd start building up some of his paintings, like Bunny Boy. In fact, that's a pet name for him. We called each other Bunny Boy and Bunny Girl. So this is a self-portrait of himself, Bunny Boy. Always a stage piece. So yeah, he started building up and articulating the surface of his paintings. I think I might have been an influence, and I hope so. And I know that he influenced me in so many ways. There's a better example of the encaustic that I love doing in this piece, which is owned by Frank Romero and Patrick Gila. We're not sure who owns it, but they loaned it to the exhibit. And here you can see, if you come in close, you can see what the paint is doing, which I just adore. Just love that, like, that it's paint. You're really allowing the paint to do what it wants to do. And again, the image is very, very fertile, very much about the feminine figure and goddess-like. And this is a particular water maiden, water goddess. And often when you see a feminine figure, he said that they would represent his anima, his feminine side, his female. And you see here, these looks like lovers here, kissing or discussing, and this face kind of coming forth as, you know, kind of the fear. And it brings to mind, I was just reminded while watching this, that Carlos did have a primal fear that I would leave him after 7 years of our relationship. He thought that I would kick him out and he would wind up a loner in an East LA hotel room after 7 years. He had this thing about transformation, and he would say that every 7 to 10 years he would completely transform into a very different person. And it was true. If you look at his timeline, artistic and personal, he would make those transformations. He was a seeker, and he would like consciously work on his own personal transformation, his self-realization. So I believe like there's a figure which I don't see in any of these pieces called the Wanderer, and that's a reflection of his fear of being abandoned or left alone. This was done in '89, and this is the year of Carlos's death. And so the palette is much darker. He was dealing with his mortality, and normally the palette would be a high key, much brighter. But he was dealing with that, and the buffo here, which was a recurring figure in his work, represented himself, like you know, the youthful folly and all that entails in being the court jester as an artist, and feeling that a lot of regret for his getting to this point where he was losing his life and all that he had loved and worked for. So that's what we see here, and again, lots of iconography. The boat represented passing into other realms, ships sailing in the night. He had anthropomorphic figures, and they're all rushing out of their spirit bodies, it appears to be. And so yeah, this is one of the swan pieces that he created. And for those of you who do not know Carlos's car crash series, he was very well known for 2 genres in particular. One was the car crashes, and the other were eco parks, which is an inner city urban park, which you'll see in the next painting. For him, Carlos said that the car crash represented the clash of culture and modern man, the clash of technology, the clash of the sexes. So it was very representational for him. They weren't gory. He didn't mean them ever to be that. He reckoned them to a cartoon you'd see any Saturday morning. I have a funny story too. When we first started dating, my mom gave me high sign because I said, "Mom, he's so old." She says, "No, they're the best, son los mejores." And so I would pick him up. We had the Wednesday and Saturday night dates, and someone had crashed his car on Echo Park Boulevard. He lived in one of the houses overlooking the park, and I became the driver. And I hadn't seen his recent work. I only knew of his political work, which was kind of cartoonish. I didn't think they were fine art. And then when he did go back into his studio after having left his movement work and his political paint work, his political artwork, I had gone into a studio, and from floor to ceiling there were these masterpieces. And I realized the mastery of this man, the genius of this man. And so I was afraid actually to let him drive, so I did all the driving.
So I just wanted to add one thing that I read about Carlos that I thought was really important. And he was talking about when he met you, that he was teaching kids at Plaza de la Raza.
So was I.
And you were, right. And somebody else was?
Louis Perez
That's
and
right.
David Hidalgo,
A bunch of artists.
Lobos.
And he said that that experience was so important for him because he said it wasn't about the finished product. And so he learned that art was a process and that you just had to do it. And it was really very existential. And that I think is so important as we walk through and we start to understand a little bit more about his process, and not just about the finished product, but about really understanding himself and the art and the work through it all. So we thank you for being with us, and we hope that you learned a little bit more about Carlos Almaraz, and we hope that you can come and see it in person, but no promises just yet.
I do hope you get to come see it, because looking at them up close and personal, you can see all the nooks and crannies and all the handwork that went into it. So with luck from the gods, you know, the gallery will be open.
Thank you all.
Thank you, mahalo.
Thank you so much, Elsa. That was very emotional for me. How about for you?
Okay, let me get back on.
Okay.
There you are. It's always emotional, you know, to talk about Carlos and to see his work on the walls, and just wondering how much more he would have shared with the world, because he truly was an artistic genius and a scholar and a philosopher and an incredible comic. He was so funny. And, you know, we finished this movie on his life called Carlos Almaraz Playing with Fire. And I have a really exciting announcement to make. It will be seen on Netflix on October 1st. And we're not allowed yet, yay! We're not yet allowed to post anything about it, but that will be coming soon as we get the okay from Netflix. But yeah, my co-director, Richard Montoya, and my team, my producer, Mark Roberts and Max Froschiger, there's so many people involved in this production. And because it was for the love and the passion we had for him, for this man who was so open, he was an open book. So you'll have a lot more insight on his life and his ups and downs. I mean, we're brutally honest about his life, because he too was very transparent about his life. He wrote like 80-something journals and just emoted very authentically. So it's a great honor and joy to be able to present this to the world, worldwide.
Fantastic. Yay. Well, we have a trailer set up. Do you think Netflix would mind if we showed it?
I don't think so. Let's do it.
All right, we're gonna do it.
This is the first 3 minutes, I believe, of the film.
I think we're seeing the evidence, the expression of a really forceful, passionate personality at work. And we're seeing it almost directly from his mind's eye to the canvas, where we can pick it up with our eyes.
The ability to put on paint is like a musician that can really, really play his jazz, and he's slapping paint on it, you know, and building it up, and it looks like architecture at some point, you know, and then be very delicate with watercolors and pastels is his ability, you know. That's what he does. He's the Coltrane of painters.
I mean, seeing the finished painting is one thing, but to see him actually lay the paint on the canvas, he was just like a performance artist. It wasn't just his hand going across the canvas, it was his whole body.
His paintings that might depict a scene in Echo Park, a car going off a freeway, but it's rendered in a style that is of the same caliber, on the same level as Monet, Degas, Renoir.
They have this perfect balance of light and dark. And I mean that not just in the light and dark of drawing or painting, but light and dark emotionally.
People talk about his bridges that are being torn down now. He was the essence of what Los Angeles was during his time. He was like a artist of the people.
There's so much in Carlos and his expression. You never get tired of looking at his paintings.
God almighty, it feeds the soul, and Carlos fed our soul. When he passed, man, it was just very, very hard to take. He was a giant.
The question that I've been asked about this is, why should anyone paint a 12-foot-long burrito stand? Well, we have to think of ourselves as pretty finite creatures. 100 years from now, there may not be anything like this around. I see painting, or a painting, as a time capsule. You put information on it, and you sort of thrust it into the future, and hope someone will come into a gallery or a space and look at this and ask what in the world that was. And maybe they won't believe it existed. Maybe the only evidence that it did exist and it was reality will be this 12-foot-long painting of a burrito stand.
Oh, that is incredible.
Thank you. And I also wanted to acknowledge Richard Alarcon, our master editor who put this all together. And so much amazing music. Chicano Batman, Louie and Dave from Los Lobos and Latin Playboy let us use so much of their music. And so it's a really exciting film.
Oh, I had the fortune to watch a screening at the LA Latino International Film Festival. I think it might have been one of the premieres, if not the premiere. And it was just so moving to see his work come alive. The way that you and Richard Montoya, the co-director, were presented his artwork in almost a three-dimensional movement way, almost animated. It was just, it really brought to life all of these images, some that are very familiar to people, the Echo Park series, of course, the car crash series, of course, but also these very intimate moments that he shared and that you shared, and that all these people that followed him and that just lauded him for not just his artwork, but also for his humanity. It's a great documentary. It's a must-see, so can't wait to see that announcement on Netflix. So thank you for that.
Yes, thank you. And what it's been interesting because in getting the film into film festivals for the last year and a half, most people didn't know who he was. So a lot of festivals passed, except for the Southwest, where he was quite known. And so this new platform will give us a chance to really expose him to the world, to a world audience, which had always been my intention in keeping and being the keeper of his legacy, because for himself, for my daughter, and for all generations of Latinos and artists to come, all artists of all colors, because he would break so many barriers in doing that. And on a personal note, this piece behind me is a study of one of the pastels he did while he was here on Kauai. He did a lot of plein air painting out in the field with pastels and watercolors, and then he'd go back to his studio in LA and produce these giant paintings of mythological themes of Hawaiian mythology. So he's very much a cultural anthropologist. He loved telling stories and diving into the culture, and we love the Hawaiian culture. So he would have been here with me right now had he been here, had he survived.
No doubt. And that's one of the questions that we have from Indira Jimenez. Were you still together when he passed?
Yes.
Such a young loss.
It was such a loss. He was 48 years old when he passed. I was 33, maybe? It was a 14 year difference. So pardon my math. But yes, we were friends, like I said, for the first 7 years of our life. And he actually, I first met him when he came to me as part of Los Four, wanting to do a mural for Los Tres, these community activists. And I was the art liaison for the committee to Free Los Tres. And that's how we first met. And then later we started working together in Plaza de la Raza. And so our 10-year love affair, in which we produced a beautiful daughter, Maya, who's now 37. She's a climate change scientist, and he would have been so proud of her. She was 6 when he passed, and we were together till the end. So yes, it was a huge loss, and we would have, we were life mates. So unfortunately, it wasn't as long as I had wished, but I would do it all over again, despite all the sadness and the tragedy of having lost him.
Sure. Well, he was part of in the documentary. It shows, of course, his start as a young man, moving to New York with Dan Guerrero, host of Dan Guerrero's Happy Hour every other Friday here on En Casa con la Plaza. But also, then he returned and kind of found his way into the Chicano movement. Whereas before, you know, and it's explained even in as you did in the walkthrough, that he kind of negated his Chicano, Mexican American, Mexican self. So how did that happen?
Well, he never negated it. It just wasn't part of our reality at the time. Chicano was not yet defined. He grew up as a Mexicano, first and foremost. He was born in Mexico City, migrated to Chicago, and then as a 12-year-old, 10-year-old, 12-year-old, came to Los Angeles. And then he went back to New York after he graduated from Garfield High School in LA to be the great American artist that most artists dreamed of becoming. And at the time, you had to do that in New York City. LA's art scene was kind of non-existent. So when he did that, and he had his, you know, his downfall from alcohol and depression, and came back to LA, almost died of pancreatitis. And that's when he journeyed with the UFO guys when he was in his coma. He was in a 40-day coma at LA County General Hospital. And when he came out of that, that was his transformative moment when he said, okay, it's not about me anymore. I want to do something else. I want to, and then he started hearing about Chicanismo. He didn't even know what that word was. So he started hearing about it. He met Gilbert Lujan, later part of Los Four, Magoo, as we know him. And Magoo started educating him about the cultural politics that was happening. Carlos decided he wanted to get like in the middle of it. He wanted to go to the source. So he went up to the Central Valley and started working with Cesar Chavez and the farm workers, producing huge murals and art for their newspaper, El Malcriado. And, you know, so that's how he became politicized, until one day when Luis Valdez from Teatro Campesino, who was also working in the Central Valley, told Carlos, you know, you really should do your own work. You're just, you know, you're doing too much, and you'd better serve your people if you went back into your studio and you did your work. And that's what catapulted him back into the studio to do his very personal work instead of political work. And he was always still an activist and was very involved, you know, politically, but he was really doing more personal work, all the work that we've come to know of him today.
Well, that's fantastic. We have to give respect, of course, to Magoo. He was the person that led a lot of us into knowing more about our culture, our heritage, including myself.
Yeah.
So yeah, but the transformation from doing the more political work to more personal work, it very much shows. And I just admire the way that he was able to put all of his emotions, his history onto the canvas. And it shows in the work that's displayed at La Plaza. Does it ever make you feel, you know, it doesn't seem to make you feel uncomfortable, or for a lot of us, you know, we kind of hold it in, but he was out there. What's the story behind that?
Did it make me uncomfortable, or did it make him uncomfortable?
Either one of you.
No, not at all. Because as I said, Carlos was always transparent. He was so transparent about his sexuality, about his politics, about, you know, his, the child abuse that he received from a pedophile uncle and then later a priest, his sexual confusion, his searching, and, you know, his desire to have a family. He didn't think he was, he ever would have attained that. Plus, he had all that Catholic guilt saying that you were a sinner because, you know, of your sexual past. And he got through all that. But as I said, he would share that with all of us. And in his comfort, because of that comfort level and transparency that he was just so good with, I adopted the same feeling that there was nothing that I would want to hold back. And as you see, you know, in the movie, we've been brutally honest about all of that.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And of course, we all need to see the documentary. So
yes.
All of you that have Netflix, please tune in. If you don't, you got to subscribe. I mean, what else are we going to be doing during these pandemic times except for watching some incredible television? But we have just a few people here. Edna Meras says congrats to La Elsa on your movie on Netflix.
That's my Wilson High School homie girl.
All right. Well, Cynthia Harding, thank you for sharing these amazing memories. I'm so glad the film was made and I look forward to seeing it. His art continues to inspire and amaze, as does yours, Elsa.
Oh, thank you, Cindy. She and I played music along with her dad, Timothy Harding, who taught folk music at Cal State LA.
That's right. And they come, her and her sister, they come to La Plaza and they play on a pretty regular basis some incredible music.
Libby and Cindy, they're amazing.
Okay, so we have also, Cindy from Hollywood, Adrian Sanchez from Austin, Texas, Leonel Perez says, congratulations, Elsa. And there's a few more here. But Isabel Rojas Williams, fantastic news about the movie. Congratulations for all your hard work, querida Elsa.
Thank you, everybody. That means a lot. Appreciate it.
Linda Collins, the Coltrane of painters. She really loves that, as do I.
Beautiful.
Well, thank you so much. Anything else to wrap this up?
When you do go to Netflix, give us a high rating because I think that helps in getting us better publicity. So I know you'll love it. And thank you all for this forum, for this opportunity to share more of Carlos and the inspiration that he continues to serve us.
Well, thank you very much.
So thank you, Abelardo, and thanks to La Plaza for putting this together.
Sure, and we hope to be able to share it with the public. We haven't scheduled an opening date yet. Like I said, we're still waiting for the guidelines from the state, the county, and the city, but it's still on our walls waiting for viewers to come in and to see for themselves the incredible work of Carlos Almaraz.
And it's a beautiful show.
With that, we're going to wrap it up, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's to come on En Casa con La Plaza. As you know, we're here almost 3 days a week at least, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. This Friday, which is in a couple days, we have the musical traditions with the Quetzal family trio. If you're familiar with Quetzal, the group, this is Quetzal Flores, Marta Gonzalez, and their son Sandino playing a very intimate concert for all of us. On Monday, we will have our En Casa con La Plaza Cocina, which is our cooking demonstration. And then I don't know what's going on after that, but I do know, and I would like to announce, one of the people that was shown in the trailer was Castulo de la Rocha. He's the CEO and president of Altamed Health Services Corporation, and also a Chicano art patron and supporter. Could you tell us a little bit about your relationship with Castulo?
Castulo's nephew is Zach de la Rocha from Rage Against the Machine. And Zach, from the inception of my work on this film, which goes back 15 years, Zach was an important piece because he's one of our narrators. He reads from Carlos's journals in the movie. So through that, Castulo came into the field. Castulo had always been an Almaraz collector. and he got very involved in wanting to support the movie. So he's one of our executive producers. And yeah, he's got an incredible collection that fills all of his health clinics. So yeah, I'm very proud of that. Also, Quetzal has a song in our piece, as does Sandy Romero, who you've had probably on your cooking show. So she's also in the movie as well.
Yes, Sandy has been one of our En Casa con la Plaza Cocina sessions. So we're really proud to have had her on our broadcast. But I'd like to also share here our 2020 Virtual Pobladores Awards Gala. This is going to take place on Wednesday, October 14th from 6 to 8. And coincidentally, Cástulo de la Rocha is one of our award recipients for a Pobladores Award, along with Los Lobos, who played a part in the documentary as well. So I will go ahead and put on our chat and also on our comments a link so that you can check out more and see how you could get involved with this, with our fundraiser, which usually takes place at La Plaza de Cultura y Artes, as you know, but because of the pandemic, we're doing virtually, just like everything else that's going on, we're doing things online. You could catch our upcoming shows at lapca.org, En Casa con la Plaza. All of our past sessions, including this one, will be posted and are posted on our YouTube channel at La Plaza LA and on our Facebook channel at La Plaza LA. And we'd like to thank our sponsors, SoCal Gas and California Humanities, for making this possible for us to keeping the art and culture alive and sharing it with you who are at home. So thank you so much, Elsa. This was a pleasure seeing you and to screen this virtual walkthrough, and hope to see you soon.
Mahalo, same to you. Aloha, everyone.
All right. Aloha a todos. Nos vemos pronto.